All right, guys. Hope that test went well for you. I'll have that graded over the weekend. But we're moving on, as we do in math. So, perfect squares. Let's start with that. So, with this unit, we're going to do square roots, which is the opposite of squaring. But let's just do a quick review on squaring, right? When we're talking about squares, we take a number or a variable or even, a polynomial. Here we're doing numbers, but we multiply it by itself, right? We're kind of doubling up on it with multiplication. So let's just fill this out real quick. 1 times 1, I hope to God you know that is 1. Okay? 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. We got 25, 36. I'm just going to fill this out. Okay, so I'm going to be real with y'all. Those you should have memorized. That's like times table stuff, right? When you get it up above 12, it gets, you'll have calculators, but you guys should know this stuff. This is the filled out chart. If you want to take a second to just fill yours out, it'd be like a good reference as we're doing these. Okay, so taking the square root of a number, right? We'll come down here. Taking the square root of a number is the inverse of raising the number to the second power. Okay, so square root, total opposite. So when we square 3, right, 3 times 3 gives me 9. And then when we take the square root of 9, so going the other way, right, it's 3. Okay, and if I break 9 down inside that radical, I get a pair of 3's, and that's what we pull out. And you'll see this method in just a sec. So 7 squared is 49. Well, the square root of 49, we're doing backwards, right? That's going to be 7. Okay, cube roots, right? Cube roots, same thing as cubes, right? So just quick, right? 3 times 3 is 9. If we had 3 cubed instead of 3 times 3, right, there's 3 3's. So 3 times 3 times 3 gives me 27. And then the cubic root of 27, we're going backwards, is 3. Right, I can have 3 times 3 times 3. I have a triplet of 3's. That's what I bring out. Okay. 7 cubed. That's 343. And the cube root of 343 is 7. Right, we're just going backwards. Okay. So an expression that contains a square root or any kind of root, right? Cube root, 4th root, 10th root, plenty of different roots. We call this a radical. Okay, radical. So there are different parts of the radical. We have the index, which is this b. So cube root, there's a 3. 4th root, there's a 4 for this b. So square root, let's do square root of 9. Whatever. There's no 2 there, but there kind of is, right? It's kind of understood that that's a 2. It's not written out for you, but if I were to write out an index for a square root, we would have a 2 right there. Radicand, right? That's the number underneath. So for this one, it's a 9. And a coefficient, let me say I put a 2 out in front of there. So coefficients, as always, they're just multiplying whatever is behind it. Okay, so I can multiply the square root of 9 times 2. So the square root of 9 is 3. I'm multiplying that by 2. I get an answer of 6. Anyways, let's move on to simplifying some of these radicals. Square root of 100. Well, we got this list right here, right? 10 times 10 is the square root of 100. So, 10 times 10, or 10 squared is 100. So the square root is 10. Okay? Square root of 25. Well, 5 times 5 is 25. Opposite of that is 5. This one, 3 times the square root of 121. Well, if you look at your chart, the square root, or 11 squared is 121, so the square root of 121 is 11. And we multiply that by the 3, that coefficient on the outside, to give me 33. Okay? Same thing down here. I got 81. Square root of 81 is 9. And I have the 7 multiplying that 9 on the outside. So 7 times 9. The answer to this is 63. Negative 225. Okay, so negatives, this is on the outside of the radical, okay? We'll get to the inside a little bit later, but for now, basically what this is saying is, well, what's the square root of 225? It's 15. Now make that a negative. I'll do that. Similar down here. So let's focus in on the square root of 49. I know that's 7. And I had this plus minus sign out in front, so I'll just slap that down in front of my 7. Okay? 144. I know 144, the square root of 144 is 12, and I have that coefficient of negative 2. So I get an answer of negative 24. I have the square root of 9, which I know is 3. I'm multiplying it by plus or minus 9. So I'm going to carry that plus or minus, right? If you multiply a number by negative, it changes the sign to the negative, right? If you multiply a number by a number that has that plus minus thing, we'll have that in our final answer. And then I have 9 times 3, which is 27. All right. Cool. Let's move on to the back. Okay. So here's the deal. Okay. Sometimes we don't get perfect square roots. Okay. So it says simplify 24. Well, if we look at our list, my list is over here. If I look at my list, I don't see 24 anywhere. Okay. So we're going to have to do something different. We don't have an automatic perfect square root, right? Perfect square roots give me just like one number, like 25. Square root of 25 is 5. Cool. Square root of 81 is 9. Awesome. Square root of 24 doesn't give me a nice, pretty number. Okay. So what I can do is I'll take whatever's under that radical and I'm going to start breaking it down into things that multiply to get 24. Okay. So what times what is 24? Well, I could do 4 and 6, right? Okay, if I break it down into 4 and 6, 4 is a perfect square, right? So whatever the perfect square is, I can take the square root of that, put it on the outside, and the 6 is left over. I'll put that on the inside of the radical. So I'm going to show you a different way that I like better. Okay, so let's do it up here. I have 24, and we'll just break it down all the way. So yeah, we have, let's do 8 and 3 this time. Okay. 3, I cannot break down. It's a prime number, right? What times what gives me 3? Well, only 1 and 3. What about 8? Well, I know 4 times 2 is 8. And I know 2 times 2 gives me 4. Okay. Now, with square roots, right, these are, here, let me grab a different color real quick. These right here are like the leaves, right? It's the absolute farthest I can go. All these numbers are prime numbers. So what I'm doing with a square root, and square root, right? We don't write it, but there's a 2 up there. That 2 is telling me I'm looking for pairs. I need 2. So I have a pair of 2's right here. I have a 2 here. I have nothing to pair it with, so I just leave it alone. And then I have this 3 that I have nothing to pair it with, so I leave that alone. Well, whatever I pair up, I can pull out. Whatever is left, so this 2 and this 3, I can multiply to leave in. Okay, and let me show you what that looks like with the square root of 32. Okay. All right. So, 32. What times what gives me 32? I don't know. 8 and 4. Let me give myself more room. So 32, I have 8, I have 4. Okay, 4 is 2 and 2. 8 is 4 and 2, and I can bring down this 4 into 2 and 2. So at the end, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2s. Well, let me pair them up. I have a pair of 2s here. I have a pair of 2s there. I have this 2, right? But since I already paired these up, it has nothing to pair with. So whatever's left, right, that's not paired, stays on the inside. Whatever I pair up, so I have 2 pairs of 2s. Let me multiply that 2 and that 2 together to get 4. Okay? So things that stay on the inside multiply together to get whatever's on my inside. Paired up numbers, I can multiply together to get what's on my outside. All right. I have a little extra room for 54. Okay, so 54. I have 9 and 6. Cool. 9 and 6. Well, I can break this 9 down. 3 times 3 gives me 9. And 6 has 3 times 2. Okay. Well, I have a 3. I have a 3. I have another 3, and I have a 2. Well, 3 and 3, let me pair these up. I don't have anything else to pair for that 3, right? These are already taken. So the 3's by itself, the 2's by itself. Okay, so I have 1 pair of 3's that goes out there. I have a 3 and a 2 left over. So 3 times 2, I multiply what's left over, put it on the inside. Okay, let me look. I'm going to want y'all work for this. Through these, I have a key, but let me do a few of these. Okay, let's do number 9. I want to do number 9. Okay, so this coefficient, let's put that on hold. I'm going to come back to that, but let me put that on hold. Let me just focus in on that 75 that's down there. Okay, so 75 is 25 times 3, right? 25 is 5 times 5, and now I have all these numbers down there that are prime numbers. I can't break them down any further. Well, I have a pair of 5s here. I have a 3 left over. So the 3 left over, the pair of 5, oh, that's my bad. The 5s go on the outside, the 3 left over goes on the inside. But I also have this 2, right? And we multiply that coefficient by whatever. Outside times outside, inside times inside. So when I'm multiplying this 2, since this 5 is on the outside, well, 2 times 5 is 10. And that 3 is still underneath. Okay. Let me do a couple more. Let me do 7. I'll do 7, sure. 48, what's that? 8 times 6. I can break 6 down into 3 and 2. I can break 8 down into 4 and 2. And 4 is 2 and 2. Okay, let's look for things we can pair up. So I have a pair of 2's here. I have a pair of 2's there. And then I have this 3 that's left by itself. So the 3 is left by itself. It goes underneath. And I have a pair of 2's, another pair of 2's. Well, 2 times 2, I'll put a 4 on the outside there. Cool. And I'll do one more. I'm going to do 10. So 256. Oh, man, I don't know. What times what gives me 256? Check it out. 256. 16 times 16. So the square root of 256 is 16. And this 1/2 is the coefficient I'm multiplying by. So what's 1/2 times 16? That gives me 8. That's my answer for that one. All right. You got some homework. Okay. Some of these are going to challenge you. Okay. Let me do one more. Let me do 13. I feel like that's a good one. So 13. Let me zoom in on that. Let me zoom in a little more. All right, 13. Let me just focus in on that radical before I do anything else, right? I'll come back to that negative 10 in a sec. So I know 10 times 8 gives me 80. I know 5 times 2 gives me 10. 4 times 2 gives me 8. And 2 times 2 gives me 4. So I have it broken down all the way I can. I have one pair of 2's here. I have another pair of 2's there. Well, 2 times 2, that 4 goes on the outside. I have the 5 left, so that goes on the inside. But don't forget, let's bring this coefficient back down. So negative 10 times 4 in the square root of 5. We said outside times outside. So this 4 is on the outside of the radical, right? So that's what I'm multiplying by the negative 10. So negative 10 times 4 is negative 40. And that square root of 5 stays the same, right? I'm not multiplying any coefficients by what's on the inside, okay? I'll do one more. Why not? Okay, let's do, let me think what I want to do. Let's do 10. Okay. So 500 is 5 and 100. 100 is 10 times 10. All right. I could keep breaking it down, but see, I have 2 10s. I can just stop there and be like, oh, yo, there's a pair of 10s. That's going on the outside. And the only thing I had left was that 5 on the inside. Don't forget to bring down that coefficient, though. So 5 times 10 to the square root of 5. We have the 5, the 10 on the outside. So I have 50 on the square root of 5. Okay, so sometimes, right, you can find shortcuts. You don't have to break it all the way down, but just be careful, right? I saw that pair of 10s. I was like, okay, let me do that real quick. That's what I did. All right, guys. Key is going to be posted for y'all, so just look at that while you're completing this, okay?